welcome to the Writer's Block. My name's John Ronan, and I'll be your host during these half-hour programs in which I'll interview writers about their careers and their ambitions and their craft. Those careers might be in journalism, they might be in fiction, they might be in poetry. We plan to cast a very, very wide net here on the Writer's Block. We'll be sharing information, of course, but we'll have a good time doing it, I hope. It'll be a varied program, and it will be open to comments from our audience. If you have some suggestion about the Writer's Block, or if you'd like to be on the Writer's Block, please watch for the address after the program. Tonight's guest is Sharon Cohen. Sharon's a very prolific writer in a variety of styles and a variety of genres. She's published short fiction in McCall's Magazine and Woman's World. She's a former columnist for the Essex County newspapers on Cape Ann. She writes presently and publishes a newsletter for 4th and 5th graders titled Time Ship. Besides all of that, Sharon is a novelist. She's published 4 romantic novels with Mills and Boon, 2 of which were released under their Harlequin imprint. Let's go over now and meet Sharon. Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
How are you?
Okay.
We're going to roll no matter what, even if you stumble over a word, as I just did.
Okay.
We're going to roll. Don't be nervous. I want to ask you something about that title, Time Ship.
Oh.
I didn't warn you about this question.
That's okay.
Where did you get that title?
It's Janet Ware's. It's somebody else's. I don't do it all by myself. It's being published by the Cape Ann Historical Association, and I'm working with a group of people, and Janet Ware is the person who really had this idea, and she came up with a title, and it's a great title, it really is.
So it's history for
4th and 5th graders.
4th and 5th graders.
Right.
And that's kind of the title I think that they would respond to.
Oh, yeah.
A little sci-fi tone to it.
Time travel element to it. And it's fun. Did you read this?
I did. I read especially the article about John Hughes.
Yeah, the man who wouldn't die, couldn't die.
Cried because God had forgotten him.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's been fun to do.
Do the children write back, or do they respond?
Well, this is our first issue, and the October issue. So we don't know yet. We hope they will. Yeah.
The October issue is the first issue.
Yeah.
Congratulations then on the debut. As I mentioned, you've got a kind of a variety of backgrounds.
Checkered past.
Checkered past? Well, I don't know if you want the connotation.
I like that.
Okay,
I'll go
you have
with
a
that.
checkered past.
Yeah.
A woman with a checkered past. You've written for magazines. You've written for newspapers. You're a novelist. Where do all those interests come from, or have they come from?
Whatever happens to be lying around at the time. I mean, I don't think you are a novelist or you are a columnist. I think you just write whatever is there that you're interested in at the time, right?
Okay.
I do. I do.
All right.
I wrote the column for the papers. I did when my son was very young, and he was part of a play group, and it was a column of things to do with children. So I experimented on them a lot. That was fun.
So is that your favorite form of writing?
What, column?
For children.
Oh, no.
Writing directed towards children.
No. And that wasn't directed towards children. That was sort of directed towards their parents and what to do with them, you know, interesting ideas, places to take them. And I actually hate nonfiction. I hate...
You hate telling kids what to do?
No. I hated writing for the newspaper because you have to get it right. You know, like you have to get your phone numbers right.
X.
Yeah, that used to terrify me. But because I think you can make somebody's life really miserable if you put the wrong phone number in the paper. But
your own and somebody else's.
Right.
What were some of the most or more interesting things you came up with to do for kids or for parents to do with children?
Oh, there was one on gardening with children, and there was one on backyard cooking, you know, like camp out cooking, and one on fishing, and then I did one. Actually, the one I liked the best was a real heavy column on, and I'm going to forget the name of the group. It's a wonderful group that you call when you're about to beat your children, and they talk you out of it and get you into a counseling group. I did a column on them, which I really thought was a nice column, because they were really nice people. But that was a heavier, dutier.
Yeah, I'll say.
It was.
Since you hate nonfiction, I'll drop the nonfiction topic now. Okay. We'll go into...
I can get my facts right. It's just easier if you don't have to.
You can create your facts, and you don't have to check with anybody.
Right.
So,
right.
What have you done for McCall's and Women's World?
Oh, I did a story in McCall's called "The Man on the Motorcycle." That wasn't my title. I forget what my title was, but that was a short story. And I actually got 3 fan letters from that. I was really excited.
Really?
It was just a huge amount of fan mail. And I was real impressed because I got these 2 letters. I was on my way to the dentist, I remember this, and I sat down in the dentist's waiting room and I said, wow, this is really great. This is what being a writer is all about. I have a piece of fan mail from Miami, and I have a piece of fan mail from Miami. And I looked, and I opened the letters, and I read them, and they both had the same format, and they were from 2 kids in the same class who'd obviously been told, pick a story in a magazine and write to this person. And it was really cleverly done. I was real impressed because they knew how to say, I read your story, such and such, in the such and such issue. I have one question. You know, so they'd get an answer back. So
then you answer them.
I answered them. It was great.
The title that the story was published under was The Man on
the Motorcycle.
The Man on the Motorcycle? What was it about?
It was a man on a motorcycle. It was a romance about a woman who comes home from work, and her kid has this wild story about a man who's been stopping on his motorcycle and talking to him every day, and she thinks that he's got this imaginary friend because his father is left and they're divorced, and the kid says, well, I've invited him to supper tonight, and she doesn't believe him.
So this could appeal to adults and children.
Yeah. Yeah, it was basically, it was an adult story. But these 2 high school girls really enjoyed the story.
Are there high school girls?
Yes.
Have you contacted them since to see if they've had any motorcycle romances? Or
no.
Motorcycle related?
No. It was just, I wrote them back. And
one question I'm always intrigued with writers is where the idea came from.
Sure.
Did it spring on you, a brilliant idea, or did you crank the story out slowly over weeks? How did that story happen?
Particular story?
That particular story.
No, I had that idea on the way to a meeting. I was involved in, which was the Council on Aging. And I had the idea on the way to the Council on Aging meeting, and I hate to tell you that I sat there during the meeting and worked the plot out in my head. It was along the lines of, gosh, wouldn't it be funny if your kid had an imaginary friend, what you thought was an imaginary friend, and it really wasn't. You know, it was an idea that just then. But my husband laughs at me because I'll be sitting at a dinner party and I'll look up, and he knows, you know, that there's been something in a conversation, and sure.
I can't imagine how exciting Council on Aging meetings must be if you can write a whole plot in your head during the meeting.
Well, I really should have been paying more attention. I mean, but I wasn't.
I hope none of the counselors are watching tonight. Was that a long time ago you wrote this?
That was a while ago, yeah.
You mentioned that story was a romance.
That was a romance. I write a lot of romances. I like romances.
Woman's World was a romance.
No, that was a mystery. That was a murder mystery.
That's right. It says mystery in your
yeah, it was a real gruesome
resume.
One.
And you've got many, many more publications than I could include in the introduction. But I was intrigued by the fact that Women's World story was a mystery.
Yes.
And I remember that.
It was one of those mysteries that fits on one page in the back of their magazine.
A whodunit sort of mystery?
Yeah. Or a howdunit.
A murder?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. A particularly vicious one.
Oh. Where did that idea come from?
Oh, I don't know where that one came from. But.
You wanted to kill somebody at a meeting, perhaps?
Probably.
I don't want to.
Probably.
Could have, yes.
I take a fair amount of pleasure in murdering people off.
You do?
Sure.
So you don't have to do it in real life?
Right. It's a real substitute.
Do you think it is?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So people like Elmore Leonard would be horribly dangerous people if they didn't turn out to be writers, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Elmore Leonard, Sharon Cohen.
Mm-hmm. Stephen King.
Stephen King.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want Stephen King on the loose.
You know my philosophy. I told you my philosophy that writing is socially acceptable mental illness.
Yes, yes,
So,
on the phone.
yep.
Now I remember that.
And you can just do whatever you like.
And you get paid for being mentally ill.
Sometimes you get paid. I think the other part of writing is something that's crazy is you don't always get paid.
Not always.
No. Do you always get paid?
No, I write mostly poetry, and I almost never get paid.
Yeah, well, it's the kind of profession where I don't know any other art, okay, art is the other profession. But there are very few professions where you'll do something and only get paid for the final product, maybe. You don't get paid for all the time you put in.
But unless you put all the time in and take the risk and make the gamble, you don't even have the 1% chance of making it.
Right, right. But it's not a sane profession.
Maybe I should move my chair back. It sounds like you're going to get dangerous in a minute. McCall's magazine published a romance, The Man on the Motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you, before we talk about your novels, which I called romantic novels on purpose because I didn't know what your definition of a romance was. That's changed radically since maybe it was first used in the Middle Ages to now. What's a romance? You're a writer. You can give us the ideal definition. What is a romance?
Oh, I think that if you said romance novel, most people would know what I wrote. I mean, it's not a it is romantic. Yes, it is. But a romance novel is, it's a piece of genre fiction. It's written within certain guidelines. Boy meets girl. Boy and girl have a horrible fight and misunderstand each other for 11 chapters. Boy and girl get together in the 12th chapter.
Always boy and girl?
Yes.
Is it? Well, it's not
quite that
middle-aged. I mean, you get a middle-aged romance, something like on Dallas on television, or is it always young people?
Oh no, the people are. The girl is the woman is 20s to 30s. The man's usually slightly older, slightly richer, handsome and well-dressed, arrogant. No, it's not. It's not quite that. There are guidelines, but they're not quite that.
And is it in style polite family writing, or is it torrid?
You're telling me you didn't
bedroom
read my
scenes?
books before I came
I
here?
read parts, but actually I didn't read all of them.
You didn't read them
I don't
all?
read German or Hebrew.
My son was real impressed
Or
when we first got the first French translation. He was real impressed when that came because he didn't know I could speak French.
now, did you tell him the truth?
Yeah, I finally told him the truth.
That you're good but not that fluent.
Right, right.
So a romance is always love.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I'm thinking, as opposed to maybe a medieval romance that might be about knights or warriors.
Uh-huh.
And it always works out in the end.
This particular, yes. Yes.
Your four novels.
Yes.
No one dies, and tragically.
Oh, you mean the hero or the heroine?
Yes.
No. They end up happily in each other's arms.
Happily.
Yeah.
You can't conveniently kill people in romance.
Oh, you can kill other people. You just can't kill the two major people.
But you'll get into mystery fiction then, I guess.
Right.
If you start killing the central characters off.
Right.
Okay. That's a romance. You have written 4, and one is titled Odd Man Out.
Right.
Another is titled High Country.
And these are just, which ones are these?
And
oh, these are just the foreign language versions of Odd Man Out.
okay, what are the 4 titles again? Then Odd Man Out.
Odd Man Out and High Country, the 2 that got paperbacked, and then there was one called Pirate's Key and Cold Comfort that got put out in a kind of a permabound edition, but never got paperbacked.
I want to ask you specifically about Odd Man Out. If you can explain what the basic plot is. A boy meets girl,
And, right.
boy, they have a fight,
misunderstand each other.
and then they get back together.
Right, you got it.
If you could explain a little more detail about this particular one, and then later I want to show the audience the...
Well, just read the back.
The translation.
It's all on the back. Wait a minute, it's right here.
Jason, figlio illegittimo di Cretan Dorneve aveva abbandonato la casa paterna per... So you have an illegitimate child in one of these?
Yes.
That's acceptable?
Well, the man is illegitimate.
Why don't you read the
Oh,
back?
God, I have to read it myself. Her hand in marriage was worth a fortune. Because of his illegitimacy, Jason had always felt odd man out in the wealthy Dorning family. Finally, 10 years ago, he'd left Boston to carve his own destiny, leaving young Andrea heartbroken. Now his father's death revived the rivalry that had always existed between Jason and his brother Robert. My son is to inherit my entire estate on the day that he marries Andrea McKinley, their father's will stated. Andrea was engaged to Robert, but Jason had been her first great love. Would he use that love just to give his brother a run for his money? See, now you know the plot.
Thank you. Had you forgotten the plot?
No, I remembered that plot. Actually, I like that book a
I want
lot.
to see if we can get a close-up of these. These are three, I don't know, can we do that, Brian? Are we close on this? The three novels, the three editions of one novel, are in English and Italian and Greek. As you can see, the picture was kept for each of them, identical picture for all editions, which surprised me a little bit because I thought that for different cultures they might have to change.
And they did use a different picture for these two, which are the same book.
These are how much on sale on the marketplace, on the shelves?
How much are they?
Your favorite?
I don't know. How much was this one? $1.95?
$1.95. Where are these sold usually?
Supermarkets. All your finer supermarkets.
All your finer supermarkets?
Drugstores.
How long are they on the shelves?
About a month.
So you sell...
But they're in every supermarket.
In Greece, in Italy, in the United States?
Yeah.
So you can have fabulous sales.
Yeah, yeah. It's fairly lucrative if it gets paperback.
Even though it's a short time span. How did you, not artistically now, but how did you, in a business sense, get involved? Did you find an agent?
No.
Did you
No, I've never had an agent.
Send the manuscript off cold?
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Oh, my first one got rejected, and my second one got rejected, and I said, I'll write one more, and then I'll give it up. And so then I got one sort of accepted. And
was that one of these?
No, that was one of the two that didn't get paperbacked. I wrote two. The first two that got accepted didn't get paperbacked, and they, you know, you get a little bit of money. And I was thinking, boy, this is really insane. And then these two got paperbacked. So, and that was nice. However, I haven't done one in a couple of years because my life sort of took another, the river flows suddenly west,
The most recent of these is...
a couple of years old.
From 1988?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask about that.
I've been a library aide. Yeah, I started volunteering at the library at my son's school and ended up being a library aide for a couple of years, which was not my idea of what I wanted to do the rest of my life, but it was interesting, and it was there.
And that took all your time.
And that took an enormous amount of time. And the same kind of, if you're doing a lot of reading, it's the same kind of energy you use to do a lot of writing. It was sort of...
Yes.
However, I discovered children's literature, which is wonderful. I think the best writers today are writing children's books.
Who would you suggest?
Who would I suggest? Catherine Patterson, E.L. Konigsberg.
Again?
Konigsberg.
What was the first name?
Catherine Patterson.
Catherine Patterson and...
Gary Paulson.
Gary Paulson.
And the woman who wrote Julie of the Wolves. Whitehead?
The name slips my tongue.
But there's some really good fiction out there for children. So
you're going to make another bend now?
I'm writing something.
Fiction?
Yeah, I'm writing something
that's
sort of maybe would be sort of junior high level. But it's intimidating because I know how good some children's literature is. It's sort of like, ooh, ooh. I'm writing a ghost story, and I'm writing the ghost story not because I set out to write something for children, but because I was writing The Time Ship, and I was basically almost living with a lot of ghosts. I mean, a lot of these people were becoming as real as certainly as lively as some of my friends. So,
more lively.
Right, especially after they hear this, right? And so it was just sort of, an extension of that to start writing about a girl who meets a ghost who has a certain number of problems. That it's set in a fictionalized Gloucester, and it's about a traitor that's based somewhat on a traitor here in Gloucester.
A traitor?
A traitor.
Traitor.
Traitor. Not a trader, no.
There are a lot of traders.
No, somebody who sells the town out during the Revolutionary War. So that's what I'm doing now.
We just got the high sign that we have 2 minutes left. I want to ask you a general
fast.
wrap-up sort of question.
Okay.
What do you think is important for someone who wants to write romance novels or for magazines? If you could say one thing or maybe two things real fast.
For somebody who wants to be a writer, marry somebody who's willing to support you until you can get going. Right.
Male or female?
Whichever way.
And even if you have a couple quarrels, you'll get back together in the end. Okay, good advice. I want to present you for being on the show with a gift that we give to all the guests. It's whiteout correction fluid.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's sort of symbolic in the computer age, but I want you to use it.
My son loves this stuff for his schoolwork.
He does?
Oh, he'll
it's
be
kind
thrilled.
of fun to paint with. And for our special guests, we have a studio audience here in the box. These are dead poets. And they want to show their appreciation for your being on the show with us.
Does it mean I behaved myself?
Yes, that means you did an excellent job. Thanks for being with us. I'd like to thank you, too, for being with us. I hope that you've learned something about writing and reading here on the Writer's Block. If you have, then it's been a success, and we're glad you could have been here with us this evening. Hope to see you next week. Good night.